how's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I'm going to go in depth on these fires in Australia. And I mean, it is major. Now, the last video that I showed the royal family, I actually showed demons in the fire. Anybody that haven't seen that video, just look in my archives at the last video that I put up about these fires, and you actually see demons. I'm not going to read anything, my royal family. I'm going to go with the flow on this one. I feel some things, and I feel compelled to say some things to the royal family. So I'm going to get folks up to speed, and we're going to get into some deep things, and we're going to get into some spiritual things too as well, and why all this is going on. So let's check out this first short video.
Of a sudden, in a moment or two, this huge dust storm came barreling through. It was coming towards us like a monster, and you could smell it, you could taste it, you could certainly feel the ash bouncing on your skin and clothes, and the winds, they are so ferocious. The entire sky has been turned this deathly shade of orange. The trees are shaking wildly in this dust storm. This is what the authorities have been most worried about today. This southerly change, these very strong winds that have barreled up from the south through the fire grounds in Victoria and southern parts of New South Wales. And what has happened is that these winds have kicked up a huge clouds of dust and ash. This massive dust storm is sweeping through where we are at a command centre near the town of Narra. These winds are almost strong enough to blow you off your feet. So the significance of this wind is that it will fan the flames that have burned so ferociously here in eastern Australia. Some of the fires burning in Victoria, South Australia, and here in New South Wales are threatening lives and property. And these winds, these ferocious winds, will simply add to the danger.
All right. So, the reporter, and that one, I should have told y'all, that video was done on the 4th. And I just like the way that he had described how horrific these fires is, and also in combined with the weather. And we'll get deeper into it because there was some rain, believe it or not, but that is not going to save them at all. So let's get into these next two videos, and this was put up 6 hours ago, and let's see what's going on.
Now we're going to head to Australia, where rain and cooler temperatures are bringing some relief this morning for communities devastated by deadly bushfires across the country. But officials warn that the flames will, quote, take off again by Thursday. At least 25 people have died as a result of the fires since September, along with an estimated 500 million animals. Nearly 20 million acres have burned, and authorities say that the fires could keep burning for months. CBS News correspondent Jamie Yukas is in Australia, in the capital there of Canberra. Jamie, what's it like there?
Well, I can tell you, Anne-Marie, that the good news is that conditions also got better here for much of the day and will be tomorrow. We were talking to some of the people at our hotel, and they said that yesterday they couldn't even see their hand in front of their face when the sun came up. Today, obviously, you can see conditions a little bit better. But when those conditions were at their worst earlier today, Canberra was considered the worst major U.S. city and worst major world city, I should say, in terms of air quality. So that's luckily conditions have improved, but much of the country is still getting smoke. Here in Canberra as well, there are fires to the east and also fires to the west. That's why the air quality has been so bad here. We talked to some officials earlier today, too, who said that the government had to shut down, many businesses shut down, and that people inside their homes actually had their smoke detectors starting to go off. The air quality was that bad.
We cannot guarantee your safety at present, Authorities across Southeast Australia are racing to get people to safety, using the light rain and cool weather for cover after supercharged fires continue to ravage the continent over the weekend.
It's like something out of a horror movie. I've never seen anything like it.
The fires have scorched nearly 20 million acres of land, forcing thousands to flee.
My neighbour stayed to defend his property, and he contacted me this morning to say, sorry, but my house is gone.
Fire officials here in New South Wales say the flames roared through here so quickly that the fire consumed things like cars, homes, and vegetation at a rate of 7 miles in 2 hours.
Australian firefighters are working around the clock, battling both the fierce flames and exhaustion.
All the crews in this area are just hurting. They're tired.
As a crew of U.S. firefighters arrived to provide welcome assistance.
Did you ever think you'd see something of this magnitude in Australia?
Never.
Evacuee Margaret Fitzpatrick came back to find both her neighbors' homes burned down, but hers still standing.
For people watching in the United States, what would you want them to know?
Just the spirit of everyone banding together and helping each other. And even though a lot of people have lost a lot of things, we still have that really good community spirit.
Wow. So we heard that, there's cooler temperatures, light rain. That's helping a little bit, but things are going to return very quickly to the conditions that have contributed to these fires. So what are residents doing to prepare?
Well, I think it's an interesting point you just made, Anne-Marie, because some of our viewers may not know that here in Australia, it is summertime. So that means that they are in the heart of fire season. But this is just the beginning. So that's why officials are very fearful that the fire season could go on for months. What we were told by people we talked to in some of these towns is that they've prepared their homes the best they can, and that things have been so scary that they've just decided to leave, go to other parts of the country, stay with family and friends in other places until some of this subsides. There have been many instances where fire was not supposed to jump, let's say, a river or a highway, and then did. So what I can tell you is that people are very much vigilant, they're alert right now, and they're scared that this could go on for quite some time.
And so how is the smoke from all of these fires affecting people and wildlife in the area?
Well, as you said, when you look at the numbers of wildlife that have died and in terms of the habitat here, the smoke is one of the factors that can really contribute to problems. We've been told that if you have asthma, if you have any underlying health condition, that you cannot even go outside. That's why so many people here in the capital were asked to please stay home, don't even try to go outside. And as I talked about before, you would hear some of the smoke detectors going off because the smoke is so strong. That has subsided here, and that's what people were very glad about. But there are so many other sections. I can tell you from driving from Sydney, Australia to here today, which is about 3.5 hours, there were pockets of very, very thick smoke. At one point in time, I actually put my mask on inside the car, even after turning off the vents and things to keep smoke out. But it just kind of depends on where you are, the conditions of where you are, and how quickly it's moving and changing.
Well, the images are, they're devastating, they're mind-blowing. We were watching some images earlier today where literally it looked like helicopters were just flying into a wall of red and orange. It's really remarkable what they're going through right now. Jamie Yukas, thank you so much.
All right. Oh, let me cut this down.
It's unclear if anything that the defense...
So, one thing that I wanted to point out that the reporter said that was on the ground is that the firefighters are exhausted. And I had said recently when I had did a video about the fires in California that Esau told me, Esau is on my mind, forgive me. Yahweh told me clear as day that I'm going to keep Esau exhausted. And I have seen literally pictures of firefighters just passed out on the ground. They just wore out. These fires are no joke. And, I'm looking at this one here. This look like they in a pit, literally, of hell. It looks like hell. And there's a reason why things are popping off. So, let's get a little bit deeper and see what's going on with the Prime Minister's shady ass. And how he is facing big criticism because he don't believe anything, And I have said that fire will make you have a very clear understanding.
Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has again been forced to defend his response to the bushfire crisis.
There's been a lot of commentary. There's been plenty of criticism. I've had the benefit of a lot of analysis on a lot of issues. But I can't be distracted by that. And the public, I know, are not distracted by that.
Roughly 200 fires are burning across the country. After a warm and dry winter, the fire season began early. Emergency crews have been working to exhaustion. But as Tom Hansen reports, some feel the political response has fallen short.
Because our town doesn't have a lot of money, but we have hearts of gold, Mr. Prime Minister.
Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison was forced to cut short a visit to a fire-stricken community after he was heckled by local residents. Last week, 2 people lost their lives in the town of Cobargo in rural New South Wales. Many others have lost their homes.
People are angry. I understand it. People have suffered great loss. People are hurting. People are raw. That's what happens in natural disasters.
But this isn't the first time Australians have expressed anger at their leaders' handling of the bushfire crisis. Just 2 weeks ago, Morrison apologized for being on vacation in Hawaii with his family while his country burned.
I've obviously returned from leave, and I know that that has caused some great anxiety in Australia, and Jenny and I acknowledge that.
Now, even lawmakers of his own party are speaking out, with one state representative saying the Prime Minister needs to open his checkbooks and help the country rebuild.
I didn't even know he was coming, and I haven't had a call from him. So, to be honest with you, the locals probably gave him the welcome that he probably deserved.
But the Prime Minister wasn't the only notable absence during the worsening disaster. The state lawmaker who oversees New South Wales emergency services returned home Friday after cutting short a European vacation, posting, quote, "My absence was inexcusable. I should have put my rural fire service family first."
I came back to step up, not step down.
Criticism hasn't just been limited to party infighting. A former New South Wales fire commissioner has slammed Morrison for failing to prepare for the fire disaster. Greg Mullins wrote to Morrison in April and again in May, warning of the impending bushfire season and requesting an urgent meeting to discuss funding for firefighters and action to address climate change. Many of the thousands of Australian firefighters battling the blazes are volunteers. In the final days of 2019, Morrison conceded to criticism, announcing volunteer firefighters in New South Wales will receive compensation. Tom Hansen, CBS News, New York.
Well,
Harvey Weinstein has been charged with...
All right, we'll get in with you later, Harvey Weinstein and your greasy ass. So, we see that Esau always had that same arrogant attitude, and they feel like they have, this fancy equipment that I've been talking about, and that, that's going to take care of everything, and they can go on about their day. Well, they're not fully understanding Yahweh, the divine hand, prophecy, and all these things that all of us will submit and atone to. And I'll prove that down the road. So, I cannot ignore the fact every single damn time I do a video about these fires that the Aborigines are not mentioned at all. As far as they're concerned, they don't even exist. Now, they will mention the animals, and they have suffered greatly, and I feel some kind of way about it. I ain't gonna lie, I do. They suffered. And it just further show you, even in this catastrophic disaster, how the enemy get down. And I know some of the enemy comes over here and watch. So watch this. Let's get into this first. We'll go over here to this other side real quick. We're going to look at some things.
An empty land, in spite of the fact that there were tribes with a total population of at least 300,000, perhaps as many as 1 million. No one knew exactly because the first Australians were not counted as human beings. Decimation was swift. Aboriginal blood carried no resistance to white disease. Lieutenant Brady, Royal Marines, reported in 1788, "From the great number of dead natives found in every part of Sydney Harbour, it appears that the smallpox has made dreadful havoc among them. But not nearly as much havoc as massacre. No British colony was born under so cruel a star as Australia." The early convict ships had brought thousands of white slaves, mostly English and Irish, transported for crimes of poverty and politics, and they became the instruments of massacre, directed by Christian gentlemen who had brought with them attitudes of racial superiority that were the staple of empire. Ironically, their cruelty was at odds with liberal reformers in Britain who were then seeking to end the slave trade. In 1837, a House of Commons Select Committee condemned the atrocities against the Aborigines. But the difference between sympathy and action was a convenient 15,000 miles.
I think it's a very calculating attitude which makes an entire nation of people write out 200 years of history and then speak only about imperial history. They speak about the pioneers, the brave white pioneers, the brave women who settled the country, as if we didn't ever exist. And all of that history is based also on the legal fiction which established for them that they legitimately owned this country. They call it terra nullius, in other words, empty continent. The law says that we did not exist in 1788. Therefore, the continent was empty, uninhabited wasteland, and therefore the British had a right to occupy it. So you see, there have never been treaties here because we didn't exist legally to sign a treaty with them.
Now, isn't that deep, my royal family? The arrogance of the enemy. But that's not a surprise about how they get down. They continue to have that type of arrogance. So, as we continue on, Australia's Aborigine people. Who are Australia's Aborigine people? Well, let's get deeper into it.
Australia's Aboriginal people have faced extreme historical persecution, so much so that in 1998, Australia implemented an annual National Sorry Day. This holiday serves as a form of recompense, and it raises awareness of Indigenous populations. So who are Australia's Aboriginal people? Well, Australia is home to many different Indigenous populations. They include the Wiradjuri in New South Wales and the Noongar in Western Australia. Aboriginal populations are often grouped together and referred to as Aborigines. However, some consider that term pejorative. Instead, legally, the native populations of Australia are referred to as Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders. Some also prefer regional terms like Ku-Eri in New South Wales or Murri in Queensland. Recently, a genetic study found that native Australian peoples may have left Africa up to 75,000 years ago, likely representing one of the oldest continuous populations outside Africa. For centuries, they thrived in Australia, usually in nomadic societies. Some developed distinct tools like the boomerang used for hunting and the didgeridoo, a musical instrument which is still popular today. Their extensive legends and oral traditions are sometimes referred to as dream and help explain their way of life and the world around them. By the time Europeans first established a colony in Australia in 1788, native populations were thought to number around 300,000, and there have been an estimated 300 different Aboriginal languages spoken. However, with the subsequent colonization of Australia, new diseases, violence spurred by racism, and oppressive land use policies devastated many of the traditional societies. Currently, Aboriginal people account for just 3% of the Australian population. Only about 75 Aboriginal languages still remain, and many are in danger of dying out completely. Up until several decades ago, Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders faced extreme racism and government encroachment on their territories. Many were not given Australian citizenship nor federal suffrage until the mid-20th century. Also during that time, the Australian government supported forcibly taking Aboriginal children away from their parents. The reason for such policies varied, but many claimed it was for child protection and re-socialization. The children taken away from their homes were eventually known as the stolen generation, and they were raised to be domestic servants and laborers. The government has since formally apologized for their part in creating the stolen generation, and National Sorry Day is specifically in honor of them. Although in modern times there has been a huge change in the government's attitudes towards Aboriginal people, high rates of unemployment, poverty, crime, and health problems for the populations persist. Aboriginal representation in the Australian government also remains low, and even today, land disputes between Indigenous groups and the government are ongoing. For a different perspective on the country of Australia, make sure you check out our video on how powerful a player it is on the world stage.
Australia is strong, but it's not a global force. The nation is surrounded by water, which is patrolled by the Australian Defence Force, the largest military in Oceania.
There's a link to that video in the description below. Thanks for watching TestTube. Please subscribe so you don't miss a single video.
Well, as we can see, my royal family, Esau is the cancer of Australia. And so, while I was doing I've been researching this the last few days. I said National Sorry Day. What the hell is that? So I looked into it, pulled it up, and here it is. The next one coming up is on May 26th. So I clicked it on. National Sorry Day is an annual event that has been in Australia on May 26th since 1998 to remember and commemorate the mistreatment of the country's Aborigine people. Okay, symbolism. Boy, y'all ashamed globally. So here's this symbolism. You know, something to be done to make Esau, feel like they have done something. They ain't did shit. This is bullshit. I'm gonna tell you straight up, bullshit. That's why your ass is over there feeling the divine hand. And with all of that, you still won't even acknowledge these people in the fire. You only concerned about your motherfucking pain and plight. Is that surprising? No, not at all. Mm-mm. So, let's listen to a little bit of pathetic shit. And this, we'll just listen to it. Now, this is back in 2008. I just felt like this particular sorry just brought it forth.
Today we honour the Indigenous peoples of this land, the oldest continuing cultures in human history. We reflect on their past mistreatment. We reflect in particular on the mistreatment of those who were stolen generations, this blemished chapter in our national history. The time has now come for the nation to turn a new page. A new page in Australia's history by righting the wrongs of the past and so moving forward with confidence to the future. We apologise for the laws and policies of successive parliaments and governments that have inflicted profound grief, suffering and loss on these our fellow Australians. We apologise especially for the removal of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children from their families, their communities and their country. For the pain, suffering and hurt of these stolen generations, their descendants, and for their families left behind, we say sorry. To the mothers and the fathers, the brothers and the sisters, for the breaking up of families and communities, we say sorry. And for the indignity and degradation thus inflicted on a proud people and a proud culture, we say sorry. We, the Parliament of Australia, respectfully request that this apology be received in the spirit in which it is offered, as part of the healing of the nation. For the future, we take heart, resolving that this new page in the history of our great continent can now be written. We today take this first step by acknowledging the past and laying claim to a future that embraces all Australians. To the stolen generations, I say the following. As Prime Minister of Australia, I am sorry. On behalf of the Government of Australia, I am sorry. On behalf of the Parliament of Australia, I am sorry. And I offer you this apology without qualification. We apologise for the hurt, the pain and suffering we, the Parliament, have caused you by the laws that previous Parliaments have enacted. We apologise for the indignity, the degradation and the humiliation these laws embody. We offer this apology to the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the families and the communities whose lives were ripped apart by the actions of successive governments under successive parliaments. So let us turn this page together. Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, government and opposition, Commonwealth and state, and write this new chapter in our nation's story together.
So, Esau thinks that all they have to do is say sorry. And you've been saying sorry since 1998. Esau, it don't matter what you do. Judgment is here to stay. And even with all of that, your true ass nature comes out. Prime Minister and his partners, they go on vacation, twiddle their thumb, while Australia burns down. When our father said fire my royal family, he really meant it. And the crazy part about it, he ain't even started. And the thing that I don't understand, these people who have been treated horribly would even attend shit like this. See, you speak volumes when none of y'all show up. Let them put all that little festivities together and all of those things that they do for their selves. And don't show up at all. We got to get to that point globally. Again, Esau, judgment is here to stay. So, some folks, they can't handle it. And I've been saying, some people, they're true rails, are always saying some things on the spiritual tip. I can't help it. I've been in the spirit world. I've always respected Yahweh. But when he took me through it, I said, you're going to submit, all of us.
A group of Muslim worshippers have come together in a park to pray for rain amid the worsening drought and bushfire crisis. News from Mail Online. More than 50 men, women and children gathered at Bonethan Park in Adelaide on Sunday to ask for rain to be sent to Australia's struggling farmers and victims of the bushfires. All clips may not match the story exactly. Priest Patrick McInerney, from the Centre for Christian and Muslim Relations, joined the worshippers for prayer. "Today I joined with my Muslim sisters and brothers in Adelaide in prayer for rain," he said. My friend, Professor Muhammad Abdallah, gave the khutbah sermon emphasizing repentance and reliance on God, who is merciful provider. The service comes a day after pilot Dick Lang, 78, and his 43-year-old son, Clayton, a surgeon, were killed in bushfires on Kangaroo Island, off the coast of South Australia. The pair had been out fighting the blaze and were returning to a family property when they became trapped. "We are devastated to have lost two beloved members of our family, Dick Lang and his youngest son Clayton Lang, in such terrible circumstances," the family said in a statement. South Australia Premier Stephen Marshall said the deaths were tragic news. "Our hearts go out to the families of those people who have been affected," he said. "It really does reiterate the very important message that people listen to the alerts. This is a very dangerous situation on Kangaroo Island. Significant property losses are expected from the fire, with many homes and other buildings believed lost, along with tourism and other infrastructure. About 500 firefighters will continue to battle the uncontrolled blaze over the weekend, with crews and other resources brought in from the SAW mainland. The fire had been burning since late in December but escalated dramatically on Friday when it jumped containment lines during hot and windy conditions. At one stage, the entire island was subject to either an emergency warning or a watch and act advice, with only the towns of Kingscote and Penishaw on the east coast considered safe places. By Saturday morning, the situation had eased, with cooler conditions providing an opportunity for fire crews to work on establishing fresh defenses. However, CFS Chief Officer Mark Jones said it was expected the fire, which had blackened more than 155,000 hectares, would continue to burn for several days. If you like our video, please subscribe our channel.
So, with all your damn prayer, you still did not mention the Aborigines. You more worried about tourism. You more worried about your media situation. You see how they get down? But I'm going to tell you what, my royal family, even though it was a small group of them praying, I've been saying, eventually, the entire globe is going to bow down to the royal family. And you can clearly see it. Farrakhan been saying for the longest, watch the weather. This is what you call a perfect storm. The fire and the weather combined. It ain't nothing Esau can do to take it out. It's just a matter of time how the divine hand fails. You know, that's it and that's all. I mean, you work hard, do whatever you want to do, pray and all that. But burn, baby, burn. And we seen those demons in those fires, my royal family. It was undeniable what we seen. There'll be more to come, my royal family. There will be more to come. We will see how Esau deals with this. And if you pay close attention, our Father is saying something. But there's so much tyranny going on in the globe, they can't even pay attention. Now, folks is paying attention because they there. But the rest of the world, not really fully paying attention. They just think they can put a little money on it. And, that'll take care of it. I ain't lost sight of Africa. I ain't lost sight of Brazil. No, True Royal don't lose sight of those things. But I'm focused on this right now because that is the way that I am being guided. So, to our Aborigine kings and queens and royals over there. I feel deeply for you. And I know the enemy must atone to the atrocious things that they did to y'all over there and continue to do and will continue to do once these fires are over with. And sorry. Where's that sorry shit at? And sorry. I do agree with the enemy. You a sorry motherfucker. With your symbolism. That was for you. Where you have a little moment and then you go back to business as usual. You'll never change. So, my royal family, render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And it's always my royal family. I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.